Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Julie, keeper of my home. Today we're going to make some Crockpot pumpkin bread. I mean, it is after all the season of fall. And if you're like me, you like anything pumpkin. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you to my whole community of people that have prayed for my husband and I. We are both feeling much better. I'm still trying to mend. I've got a little ways to go, but I'm much better than I was. Joe, he really hasn't been affected much when he was sick, but I, on the other hand, it really kicked my butt. So I'm just glad to be back. So thank you for all your prayers and well wishes. Now to get started, I'm just going to take you through everything that we need to make this really delicious and unusual bread. You are going to need one 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree. And this is not the kind that you make, that's already got everything in it to make a pie. This is just the puree. You have 2 eggs, lightly scrambled, half a cup of oil. This is canola oil. You can use coconut oil. I just don't have any more left, so that's why I use the canola. I have a half a cup of white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, and I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And then I have 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. You are going to need a mixing bowl and spoon, or you can use a mixer if you want to do it without doing it by hand. I enjoy doing it by hand, but if you don't want to, a mixer is fine. You're also going to need a greased loaf pan and a crock pot that is at least 5 quarts. You're going to want it to be big enough to fit your loaf pan in. Now this one fits perfectly in here. It's the only one I have that actually fits perfectly in there. You want it in there sitting at the bottom where it's not too close to the top because your bread will rise, and you don't want it interfering with the lid or anything else. So you want to make sure that it sits low enough for that. Now, if you had one of these that did not have the handles on it, you could put that in there. Mine has handles in it, so it prevents it from sitting down low enough. So if you had one that didn't, I think it could fit in there okay. But, like I said, this one does not, and you want it down on the bottom where, you're not going to interfere with the height of the bread when it raises. So let's just get started making our bread. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my oil in and my sugars. That's half a cup of canola oil, half a cup of white sugar, and a half a cup of brown sugar. I'm just going to get those stirred right up. Just want to mix these in really, really well. And like I said, you can use a mixer if you would like. I like doing it by hand, but it's totally up to you. Once we get that all mixed in, we are going to add our eggs. This is 2 eggs, and I just slightly beat them because they incorporate better together if they're beaten up together. It's easier. They're all mixed up. They mix up better in the ingredients. We're going to get that in there, and we're also going to add our pumpkin. Now this is a 15-ounce can of pumpkin. You want to get all of that in there nicely. You want all of that goodness. This pumpkin is so good. I haven't made this bread in probably 4 years. It's my favorite pumpkin bread. And you'll see why. I hope you actually make this bread too. I don't know. I've never had a bread that has been cooked in a crock pot before until I had this one. And let me tell you, it is the best. The texture, the moistness that it has is just unreal. You will not get a more moist bread. Okay, so we got that all mixed in. Now we're going to add our flour. This is not sifted, it's just regular all-purpose flour. Move that around, and then we're gonna add our salt and our seasonings in there. Mix all of this in nicely. I'm just kind of folding it here. So you just want it mixed, not over mixed. You over mix it and it becomes less fluffy. You want to make sure you get all of that pumpkin, all of that flour incorporated in. All right, I think we got all the bits. Make sure I get that off the bottom. Okay, now we're going to put this into our pan. I'm going to use this spatula to put it in the pan because I think it'll clean up the bowl a little bit better than the spoon will. Let's get that all put in here. Just put this in. You can add nuts. That's not a problem. I actually should have probably added nuts, but I didn't, and that's okay. Joe likes to have pecans in his. That would be really good. But we'll do that next time. I want to get this all evenly put in here. Get everything off my spatula. Give it a little bit of a tossle, and okay, it's ready to go into, well, almost ready to go into the pan. Before we put that in, I want to add 2 cups of water to the bottom of my crock pot. Now that's important because this bread is going to steam. That's what makes it so moist. It's going to steam in here. So once you get your 2 cups in there, you're going to take your bread pan and put that down in there. And before we put our lid on, I want to take either a paper towel or a very absorbent napkin, not a cheap napkin that's going to fall apart, because that is not going to help you. It's just going to make a big mess. But this is going to keep the condensation. You know when you get the moisture on your lid and that moisture drips down? You don't want that moisture dripping down onto your bread. So you want to put a paper towel or a nice napkin. This is a really nice napkin. I don't have paper towels. I don't typically have napkins either, but we had an event here not too long ago, and somebody brought some really nice napkins, so we had a couple left. All right, so that's on there, and your bread is inside in your little water bath. Lid is on here. We are not going to touch the lid again after this until your bread is cooked. So let's get this plugged in and turned on. Okay, so now you want to set it on high, your highest setting, which is, for me, it says 4 hours on high, and it's going to cook 2.5 to 3 hours. So you want to set a timer, check it at 2.5, but it can go as long as 3 hours. You want your cake tester or your toothpick, just like, you know, if it was in the oven, you want it dipped into the center and pull out clean. So as long as it comes out clean, your bread is done. So I'm going to set a timer for 2.5 hours. I'm going to check it. If it's not done, I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. Okay, let's have a little look-see. It's been 2.5 hours. My gosh, look at this. I may leave it in another 10 minutes. I just wrang this out a little bit because the condensation on here is incredible. Hopefully I don't mess this up. I'm gonna put it back on here and let this go probably 10 more minutes. Just because it came out clean, but I don't know. I think it could go another few minutes. I'm gonna do 8 minutes. And let's see here, I have 8 minutes on the clock. I should probably push start, and there we go. We'll do 8 minutes and then come back to it, test it again. That is the second time that has gone off. We did our 2.5 hours plus 8 more minutes. Let's peel this all off. You know, I think it's done. Okay, so I'm going to get this out and put it on a rack. Do you want to see how I do that? It's not always pretty because I'm always trying to not get my hands in the water and not mess up the bread. So let me get that. I'm gonna shut my crock pot off, unplug it, and slide it over a bit. You can hear the water in there. I'm gonna get my rack set up. Okay, well, let's get my gloves on. And I'm just gonna slide down to each side of this. Grab a hold of that. I'm gonna let that water drip a little bit. And then I'm gonna move it over to the rack. Now that it's on the rack, I am going to let it sit and cool before I take it out of the dish. You want that to sit just like you would if you were taking pumpkin bread out of the oven. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna let it sit. Let it cool 10, 15 minutes, closer to 15, and then we will pull it out of the loaf pan. You can see that you don't have a hard crust on this. It's steamed, really, is all it is. So it has a really moist exterior as well as interior. Can you see the moistness on that? This is really just the best bread. And I love this pan too because it's fat. It's a little bit bigger, I guess a little bit wider than a loaf pan, a traditional loaf pan. It's almost cake-like, and I love that. I really should have added nuts. I'm thinking I wished I would have added nuts now, but that's okay. We can make this again and again and again because it is fall. Okay, so we have let this sit. I actually have been busy chopping peppers to put in the freezer, so I kind of let it sit a little bit longer. So it's been about 30 minutes, but it's still pretty warm. I'm going to turn it anyway. It came out very, very nice. Okay, so I did flip it onto a rack. I was gonna put it on the dish, but it's still a little bit too hot for that. I'm going to let it sit for, I might turn it over. I'm gonna let it set for a little bit longer and let it cool. We lost a corner here. Let it cool a little bit before I slice it. And once I slice it, I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So I'm going to give this a good slice. I want you to see it. Look at this. You could kind of call this a crustless bread because the outside is just as moist as the inside. Because it's steamed, there's no baked crust on the outside. This is so moist. I mean, it's just dreamy moist. You really should try this. So good, so moist, so pumpkin-y. This is my favorite pumpkin bread recipe, and I think it's because there's no hard exterior. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the crust on the outside. I love it, but it's that inside moist that I love so much about pumpkin bread. So if I can eliminate the crust and just have the moistness, it's perfect for me. I do want to share a bit of good news with you. I have shared it if you're part of my Facebook family, or I think I've shared it on Instagram. I can't remember, but nevertheless, I have some really great news. I have decided to start a traditional school of homemaking skills where I am going to teach classes here in my home. So if you're local, you are welcome to message me or leave a comment below, and I'll get you put on my list for classes. I'm teaching homemaking classes, all kinds of different things I'll be offering, all things home, really. So that is a really exciting endeavor that I'm really excited to journey this with you. And I have had a lot of people already asking for online classes. And I think in the future, yes, that will be coming. But right now I got to get this started first and get this running before I move to the next step. But I promise you I will in time. So thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to join me on Facebook and Instagram. Like my video, it really helps my channel out when you do that, and leave me a comment below. And again, I thank you for your prayers and well wishes. And until next time.